you absolute legends. This is probably the last time I'm going to be doing this, so that's kind of sad, but today I'm going to be going over my ridiculous final explainer video problem showing off how unfortunate Tom from Tom and Jerry is and how crazy I could possibly spin the situation. So I hope you guys enjoy it and the problem for the very last time. Okay, here we go. After a lengthy discussion I had with my friend on the unluckiness of Tom from Tom and Jerry, I decided to use that as the premise for my example. So I did try to use the clip of Tom and Jerry's Rudy Goldberg example, which was pretty cool to watch back in the day, but I kind of got off track midway through, so you'll see what I mean. In the clip, it first starts off with Jerry right here, wonderfully drawn, grabbing the cheese and triggering off this alarm clock, which moves back and forth, the part that hits the bell, and that causes a saw to move. Now, for this first part, I want you to imagine it as a simple harmonic oscillator, or rather, you can think of it as a spring almost. So I'm not going to start you guys off with a numerical calculation question that you're going to have to solve using all these calculations, but I'll start you off with conceptual and then build off from there. So I noticed from the video that the log that Tom was actually setting up to cut was already pre-cut, so I'm gonna consider it as he didn't really need to do much in terms of force. All you need to do is move the saw back and forth and let the saw ridges cut off the remaining piece of wood and start the rest of the contraption. So given that no force is needed and all you need is basically how fast can you make each ridge of the saw cut the wood, what spring diagram do you think would actually match the situation that would most proficiently progress the Rudy Goldberg machine? Fully extended, halfway extended, or completely compressed? In this case, fully extended would be the handle being all the way to the log. Midway extended would be the handle being midway and the saw already halfway through the log. Or completely compressed, where the saw is barely inside of the log and it's about to come out again. Moving on to the next part. Still following along with the Rudy Goldberg example, using the fallen log piece, he uses it to close a scissor that attaches to a string, but this is where I kind of got off topic after I read that we can make this as silly as we want. So imagine that this hammer has utilized alien technology through the power of plot progression in Tom and Jerry films so that it can actually multiply kinetic energy through alien logic. I'm not even going to try to explain that, but so imagine whatever force is put in, so the potential energy from here falling onto this spring and launching this up is multiplied many, many, many times. Tom doesn't really know this because he was just setting up this contraption, and once it hits, usually the bell right here, it attaches to another string and continues the rest of the contraption. But this object right here hits the bell so hard that it flies off into space. Through the roof, of course, so he's in trouble with his owner because of that. Now, while it's flying into space at breakneck speeds, it's currently in the stratosphere at a certain point in time, like about 31 miles above the Earth's surface. Knowing that the bell is about 1 kilogram and you know the current height is 31 miles above the Earth's surface, try to calculate what the Earth's gravitational force on the ball is at that exact moment. Now, as it's continuing its ascent at breakneck speeds through the galaxy, on a faraway planet, maybe Earth 2 for example, Goku from Dragon Ball Z senses an incoming projectile headed straight to his home, and just like the hero that he is, he tries to combat it as best as he can to protect his family, friends, and the rest of the Earth. And the best way or most iconic way to do it, other than a laser beam, is the Spirit Bomb, which utilizes the power of everyone on Earth by raising their hands up. I think you can see where I'm going with this. He calls on the people of the Earth, but rather than his message reaching every single person on Earth at once, imagine it spreads from Antarctica, for example, like a wave all the way until it reaches the circumference of the Earth. In that way, people hear his message at different times. So, of course, they'll respond to his message at different times as well. So you can imagine that the hands raising on Earth looks kind of like a wave, kind of like what you see on a football stadium, except times a billion. So if you know that the wave must travel the length of the Earth, which is 40,075, oh, excuse that extra zero right there, 40,075 kilometers within 25 seconds for him to have enough time to create the ball and toss it at the incoming projectile. Give a possible wavelength and frequency for the wave that will pass those prerequisites. Also a note, as the asteroid was flying, it impacted many projectiles and slowed its speed a bit, but instead it compacted itself into a bigger asteroid rather than just that one little bell at the very start. Once he has enough energy, he decides to toss the ball, and the rock gets engulfed by it and becomes superheated enough to vaporize the rock. This is the technical physics behind leaving nothing behind on those character special attacks. So imagine, usually for rocks on Earth, a good estimate of the temperature needed to vaporize a rock is 3,700 degrees Celsius. So I'll be using that as the benchmark. And the specific heat of a common asteroid, according to Google, is about 10 times 10 to the 18 joules per K. And the mass of approximately 1/2 the size of the moon is about this much. Find out how much energy the Spirit Bomb would need to have transferred in order to vaporize this asteroid and save the Earth. Of course, after shooting it, he thinks it'll vaporize the asteroid no problem, and he goes back home prematurely and goes home for dinner. Knowing him, plot armor will probably protect him, but you should probably solve this answer out and see what he actually needed to save the Earth. What he didn't know, by the end of it, is that the Spirit Bomb actually had some residual energy, which caused it to fly back in the direction of Earth 1. And after a while, the sphere shrank and shrank and shrank using logic that I'm not going to explain just for this problem's plot. So just wing it and accept it as it is, I guess. And it miraculously plopped right into the still unfixed hole from the roof, damage caused by the bell, and plopping right into Tom's owner's cup of water. If the radius of the Spirit Bomb was about 1 inch at the time, and the density was, I'm going to just guess, 100 kilograms per meters cubed, because it might still have a bit of the compact magma and residue from the asteroid that it melted. Find the buoyant force of the ball, and do you think the cup will survive the impact from that ball going into this cup? Or better yet, do you think the house floor underneath that cup will survive? Once you answer that and finally reach the ultimate conclusion that Tom is in a lot of trouble, we have a little epilogue right here. At the end, Tom is unfortunate once again. Jerry enjoys his cheese that he got for a failed trap at the very beginning, and somehow the plot gods restore the house of Tom's owner to 100% completely normal circumstances by the next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a nice year learning physics with y'all. And for the final time, I hope you have a nice day, you absolute legends. See ya.